Everybody, as promised on the top of the show, we could not end 2023 with one more Football Friday where we will pick and preview some of the big SEC bowl games and the college football playoff. Yes, I am joined by Matt Lowe of Field Level Media. Matt, appreciate you coming on, doing this one more time in 2023. How you been doing, and how's your Christmas?
It was a great Christmas, man. Been busy with all that, and of course, I did last minute shopping like the normal average guy. But I got it done, and been watching these bowl games, and excited to see what happens here coming up.
Yeah, it's wild. We're talking about off the air. So we're recording this on Thursday night. So last night on Wednesday night was the first bowl game with the SEC with Texas A&M losing Oklahoma State there, like 31-23. So the SEC is getting kicked off. But I wanted to chat with you to open up because me and you have not talked and since before the SEC championship game. That was the last time we did a podcast. Obviously, the college football playoff rankings, a lot of controversy, a lot of different opinions. We will get into these games later on, but I just want to lead off with, did you think the committee got it right with the four teams?
Uh, I probably, if I'd have been voting in that committee, I'd have put Florida State in. But then again, I mean, I don't know how you could have left the SEC champion out. I mean, the SEC's won the title, 13 of the last 15 years, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think Florida State, I mean, they're a blue blood, man, and they could have maybe had time to get their quarterback situation straightened out. And they went undefeated, man, in a pretty good league. So, but then again, I mean, how could you leave Texas out as well when they beat Alabama? So it was some controversial things there. I mean, and it seems like always somebody's on the short end of the stick when it comes to the playoffs. But I think they did the best they could.
Hey, my whole thing too with it, and look, I understood if they go with the best four, but I don't think you had the best four then, because you telling me outside of Alabama, would any of these three other teams be favored against Georgia?
No.
So is it really the best four teams? So it's I think they kind of like went down the middle. Like they wanted to that most deserving comment, then also at the same time the best four. And I'll tell you who I feel bad for and Tate Rodemaker, which he entered a portal, Florida State's backup quarterback, because basically the committee's telling him, we don't think you're good enough.
Right. And what's the old saying? Defense wins championships.
Mm-hmm.
Florida State's defense is legit. I mean, and so yeah, you're right. I mean, and like I said, look, I think Alabama is going to beat Michigan pretty good. That's just my opinion. But I mean, you telling me Georgia couldn't beat Michigan? You telling me Georgia couldn't beat Washington? I mean, I think FSU could beat Washington or Michigan. I mean, to be honest with you. So but like, there's always somebody that's going to be left out. And it's going to happen when we go to 12 teams too, which I think is too many. But, college football is kind of in a whirlwind right now, and a lot of changes, which I'm not sure I like them all. And it's going towards more of an NFL format. And then you also got to think, Phillip, somebody like Central Michigan or somebody like UAB or somebody like Ball State or Western Michigan, they're never going to be in the 12-team playoff. I mean, they might if a miracle happens. So why don't we get to a point with college football is we do the bigger schools and let them play for a championship and let the smaller schools play for a championship. Still let them play each other, and give them those big money payouts. But why don't we divide it up and have two different championships?
Yeah, I've seen that presented before. I think that's a big reason why John Sumrall left Troy to go to Tulane, because yes, Tulane is not in a power conference. They're in the AAC, but that is probably looked at as the top power conference out there. And let's face it, if their champion goes 11-1, they're probably in the playoff. So he's probably looking, okay, Tulane is played for the conference title 2 years in a row under Willie Fritz, who did a great job there at Tulane. Yeah. So now I can go there. If I win the conference there with a really good record, I might get into the playoff. In the Sun Belt, if you're at Troy, and look, love Troy, right down the road from me, you got to go undefeated, and you're going to have some wins in there. against a Power 5 team or two to look impressive to still get into the 12 team playoff. And look, let's look at it this way too. The SEC and the Big Ten are running this thing now. I mean, all credit to what the Big 12 has done to survive, and feel bad for the Pac 12, and the ACC's in a bad situation too. This, I feel like when we get to 12 team, 8 or 9 teams are going to come from those two conferences.
I agree. I mean, look what might have happened this year.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, you could have Missouri in there. You could have Ohio State. You could have had Penn State. You could have had Georgia. So, yeah, I mean, Oklahoma. I mean, they're going to be in the SEC now. I mean, so, yeah, I mean, it's kind of one of those things. I mean, be careful what you wish for, because this could be the SEC versus the Big Ten every year.
Yeah, might as well just do it. Just have 6 from the SEC, 6 from the Big Ten.
I tell you what, it'd be a better playoff.
Yeah, because it's going to be interesting next year. But we still got the 14 this year. And before we get to those 2 games on January 1st on Monday, we're going to go quickly through the SEC bowls. We may go a little bit longer with Auburn because we're here in Alabama, but we're going to go in order too. We got 2 on Friday. The Gator Bowl, 11 a.m. ESPN. Clemson at 8-4 is playing Kentucky at 7-5. Clemson is a 4-point favorite here. Over under is 44.5. Pretty much most of the best players are going to play in this game for Clemson. Will Shipley is going to be there at running back. For Kentucky, their running back Ray Davis is playing despite announced that he was going to that he had declared for the NFL draft. Devin Leary, a quarterback, is going to be playing too as well. I think this should be an interesting game. Clemson ended the year. I mean, they were 4-4. They won 4 in a row. It feels like Dabo Swinney Company got a fire lit up on his radio show when he got kind of called out by one of the fans. But anyways, any thoughts toward this one?
I like Clemson. It's like you said, I think they ended strong. I think they're going to be motivated here to get a win, go to 9-4. I think it's probably going to be a pretty entertaining game. I think you got to keep an eye on the weather in some places, because there's been a lot of games so far in this bowl season where rain's been involved. And so I like Clemson here. I think they win by a touchdown at least.
Yeah, I do too with Kentucky. Yeah, they got all the guys. Kentucky's defense hasn't been that great this year. So I think Will Shipley and I think Cade Klubnik can have a big day. This is big for Clemson as a for next year too, going into spring, and because I don't think this team will lose 4 games again next year. And as we talked about, this is going to be a playoff contender next season. But yeah, I'm going to go Clemson too as well. I just think defensively they should be able to do some things against the Wildcats. Now, Friday night, this is a good one, man. I am looking forward to this one. The Cotton Bowl Classic at 7 o'clock on ESPN. Missouri playing Ohio State. Ohio State is favoring this game. I apologize, everybody. On my notes up here, I forgot to write down how many points they were favored by. But I know Ohio State's favoring this one.
3. I think they're favored by 3.
But you know what? They're going in with a backup quarterback, Devin Brown, who's making his first career start. I'm seeing that there were some questions about Marvin Harrison Jr. play. I'm just going to go out on a limb. I don't think he's going to play in the game. If he does, it's not going to be much. Missouri's pretty much got all their guys in this one. I think Missouri's going to pull off the upset.
I agree with you. I think Cody Schrader has a big day on the ground, and Brady Cook. I think his running it'll give Ohio State some problems. And I'm like, you don't, like we've talked about before. I mean, some of these ball games you don't know who's going to play. So, but yeah, I'm gonna go with Missouri here. Low scoring game, probably like 24-20, something like that.
Yeah, I'm with you too as well. And how about Cody Schrader? As high as he finished in the Heisman voting, his name was up there. And yeah, and it's wild when you look at the transfer portal. Kyle McCord, quarterback, leaves Ohio State. Now there was some, I think, talk with him in Nebraska, but when they got Dylan Raiola, the 5-star coming in, he decided not to go there. And he ends up at Syracuse. When did you ever think you would see a starting quarterback for Ohio State leave the Buckeyes, and he is now going to be at Syracuse?
Yeah, I mean, unless there's something we don't know, I don't understand that. I mean, but there might be. It's kind of like there might be somebody behind him that's really good and he knows he's going to get beat out. So, but that's very unusual.
Yeah, it is. It is. So we'll see how that one goes. Saturday, the Peach Bowl. This should be a good matchup too as well. Number 11, Ole Miss, who ended year 10-2, trying to get an 11th win. They'll be playing number 10, Penn State, who's also 10-2. Penn State's a 4.5 point favorite. It's another one where the SEC team is the underdog. The over/under is 48.5. Ole Miss has been on fire in the transfer portal with the players that Lane Kiffin has gotten. Jackson Dart's coming back next year. I think Quinshon Junkins too as well. But what you think on this one? It seems like these two teams are diversions of each other in the Big Ten. Like Penn State can never get over Ohio State, Michigan. It feels like the last few years with Lane Kiffin, Ole Miss just can't get past the Georgias and the Alabama. But this should be a fun one.
Yeah, and like you said, Ole Miss they play pretty good defense as well. I mean, and so this might be a lower scoring game. Penn State just they don't do enough for me on offense. I've been really disappointed with their offensive output this year. And with that being said, I'm gonna roll with Jackson Dart and Judkins and Ole Miss to get it done. I think that it's a bigger game for Ole Miss than it is for Penn State. And when these bowl games, you got to take that into consideration because some of these teams don't even really care.
Yeah, and that's the truth too. When we look at these bowls, as you just said, who does it matter more?
Yeah.
Who wants? And I think both teams care about this one. I think James Franklin needs a big win. I mean, beating an SEC team, a 10-win SEC team, would be big for him because he doesn't really have a lot of big wins on his resume there at Ohio State. I mean, at Penn State just doesn't. So it'll be a big one for them. I like Ole Miss too. I think Ole Miss is going to win this one. I just like you're right. They're not bad defensively, and they have a better offense. I just trust what they're going to do offensively a lot more than Penn
And
State.
when I say teams don't care, I'm not saying that they don't care about winning or losing the game. I think sometimes too that because I used to work with the Birmingham Bowl and be around some of the things that went on in the bowl game, and like when you're a 7 point underdog and you hear about that all week, it just fires you up. Like nobody's giving us a chance to win. Okay, all right, well, fine, we'll go out here and prove it, and I think that has something to do with it. It's just all about motivation.
Yeah, definitely, definitely, and it's a great jumping off point for the all season too. The Music City Bowl with Auburn in Nashville. There'll be 1 o'clock over on ABC. Auburn is favored in this one by 6.5 points. The over under is 47.5 points. I'm pretty sure a lot of that has to do with the fact is that Talia Tagovailoa is not going to play in the game. He decided to opt out. So they will be going with a quarterback that has thrown, Billy Edwards has thrown 10 passes this past year. For Auburn, just kind of let everybody know players you will not be seeing, players who've opted out. And wide receiver, Javarius Johnson, Malcolm Johnson, Amari Kelly, and Jair Shorter. And then in the secondary, you will not see DJ James or Nehemiah Pritchett. Of course, I said with Maryland quarterback, Talia Tagovailoa. So with this one, big chance for Auburn to get a win, 7-6. The recruiting is awesome right now. They're number 7 in the country in recruiting right now with the 2024 recruiting class. So this could really springboard Auburn into the offseason with a win. What are your thoughts on this one?
Maryland's a pretty good team. They got some good athletes, good defense. This might be a lower scoring game. I mean, depending on how Hugh Freeze attacks it. If they want to really, really use tempo, I think that could help them in this ball game because I mean they do have a quarterback that's played as opposed to one from Maryland we don't know anything about. So I think this is a big game for Peyton Thorne. I'd like to see Freeze let him turn it loose a little bit throwing the ball. I'd like to see him chunking around a little bit. As far as go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say too. It's a big moment for the other. Look, Auburn it's been highly publicized on who they have coming in at wide receiver for next year. The 2 5-stars. You've got Cam Coleman coming in. You got Perry Thompson. You've got Bryce Kane, who's a 4-star coming in. And then maybe Ryan Williams. He's from Saraland. He has not signed yet. He's still committed to Alabama, but he has not signed. He's going to wait till February. So they know the receivers coming in. So this is an opportunity for a Camden Brown, Caleb Burton, Shane Hooks, some of the other guys. Rivaldo Fairweather is coming back at tight end too. So this is an opportunity for those other receivers to show the coaching staff what they're capable of, because a lot of people are going to expect those freshmen coming in next year to have an impact on the team.
Yeah, and it kind of reminds me of the class that those group of receivers Freeze had at Ole Miss with AJ Brown and Metcalf and those guys. So I mean, they're big, strong, rangy guys that are fast. He likes those types of receivers. But yeah, man, I mean, he needs and there's going to be some guys, the young defensive backs, going to get a chance to show what they can do in Auburn secondary. So always a big time to catch the coach's eyes and make an impact. And I like I said, Maryland's played pretty good defense throughout the year. I don't know anything about their quarterback, but I think Rain's going to be involved. So, which I think that would benefit Auburn in this running game
Mm-hmm.
with Jarquez Hunter and those guys. So, but I'm going to lean Auburn here. I think it's going to be a pretty good game. I'll say Auburn 24, Maryland 17.
Yeah, I think Auburn's going to win, and I put up on my article last from college football. I picked Auburn to win 27-10. I think they're going to do that. I just know I don't have a lot of faith in what Maryland can do offensively. And I tell you what's going to interesting. We talked about cornerback. Keontae Scott coming back, and now they're going to move him from nickel to corner. He's going to play cornerback in this one. I'll be very intrigued to see how he does with that, because one, we know what he can do as a punt returner. He can be a playmaker. See how he does in that situation.
Yeah, he's a good athlete too. I still, to this day, don't understand why he wasn't back there on that punt return.
Yes.
Whatever, but yeah, I mean, I think it's a big opportunity for him. He's a good player.
Yeah, very, very much, very much. So that was big for Auburn to get him to come back. We're going to talk about the Orange Bowl now. Of course, this is Georgia and Florida State. We talked about Florida State a little bit on the top. Georgia's a 20-point favorite in this one. It's 3:00 on ESPN. The over/under is 44.5. I'm going to read to you and to everybody who is not playing for Florida State, or some of the guys who are not playing for Florida State in this game. Backup quarterback Tate Rodemaker, he entered the portal on Christmas Day. So Merry Christmas to you, Florida State fans. Practice battle week with the team, and then decide you're going to leave and hit the portal. Wide receivers Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson. Tight end Jaheim Bell. Defensive lineman Jared Verse, Fabian Lovett, and cornerback Akeem Dent. For Georgia, they pretty much, their guys are playing. We won't see Brock Bowers because he's Kirby Smart said he's been with the team, but don't expect him to play just because of the injuries, and I don't kind of blame him, first round pick and all that stuff. But Georgia's going to win this game. I mean, it just feels like this is going to be an ugly football game.
Yeah, and I will say this: Oscar Delp, he was a freshman tight end. He played a lot when Bowers was out. He's not going to be as good as Brock Bowers, but he's a good player. He's going to be a real good player. So I look at this too with Georgia. I mean, even if a couple of their guys don't play, they got somebody just as good ready to go in, so I think Georgia's going to come out and want to play well, and I think I look for Carson Beck to have a big day. It's like you said, man, those guys that you named off for Florida State are NFL draft picks, and I don't know a lot about their depth, but I'd give the edge of Georgia just because. And you got to think too, how's Florida State? How are they going to mentally take on this game? Are they going to be down in the dumps, or are they going to be ticked off and want to prove something? It's just one of those things that could go either way. And if Georgia gets up on 14-0, it could snowball. So, I really would have liked to have seen these teams full health play each other, because I think it would have been a good ball game. But I think Georgia rolls.
Yeah, my hope was, okay, a few days or a week after the playoff rankings, and then Florida State just kind of dust their stuff off and say, okay, we're all going to play in this game, and we're going to do everything we can to beat Georgia and prove that the College Football Playoff Committee got it wrong, that we should have been. Because if they play an almost full-strength Georgia team and beat them, what does that tell the committee? And then who knows if they done that, Alabama wins the national title. Could there have been conversation over a split title? Because the AP and coaches poll, I believe, can vote for whoever they want to. But it goes the opposite direction. I just kind of wonder the future of Florida State now. What kind of ripple effect does this have on them moving forward, recruiting and bringing in talent? Because then you say, wow, we can go undefeated, which would be different after when we go to the 12-team playoff. But still, I kind of wonder, and it's probably why you're seeing the stuff now where Florida State's trying to leave the ACC.
Yeah, and I don't blame them. But and them being left out of the playoff, it did a lot. It was a ripple effect all over the place. I mean,
Mhm.
so but yeah, I mean, I think the Florida State administration, I think they're pretty mad over all this. And where are you going to go though? You're going to join the SEC? I mean, you can join the SEC, but you're not going to win every game in that league. I think undefeated seasons are going to be few and far between moving forward.
Yeah, I do too, because now you can lose a game or two and you'll be okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Maybe we'll be shocked, and Florida State will put up a great fight against the Bulldogs on Saturday. Jump into Monday. We'll be in 2024 when these games kick off. The ReliaQuest Bowl, 11 a.m. ESPN2. Wisconsin 7-5 out of the Big Ten versus LSU 9-3 this year. LSU 10-point favorite. The over/under 55.5. LSU will not have Jaden Daniels, but they pretty much have everybody else in the game. And we've seen Garrett Nussmeier come in before. He's not a bad quarterback. Now, he obviously does not have the running ability that Jaden Daniels, but very, very few have that ability. But their receivers are going to be there. Malik Neighbors is playing in the game. So they're going to have everybody in this one. I think LSU wins this game. I think they win it by a couple touchdowns.
I agree with you. And I mean, if we agreed on every game, Phillip.
Yes, we have. Yes, we have.
that's not good. But here's the thing with LSU. I think they got a lot of momentum as a program, and they still got a lot of good young players. Wisconsin struggles to score points. Wisconsin's one of those teams that you always kind of be wary about, especially in bowl season, because they play a physical brand of football. But I'm like you, man. I just think LSU is going to be too much. I mean, and Nussmeier, I mean, if they got all their weapons, I mean, sure they don't have a dynamic player at quarterback, but he can throw the ball around, and he's been productive when he's gotten in there. So I'm like you. I just don't think Wisconsin's going to be able to score enough points.
I found it interesting during the transfer portal season here. Vanderbilt quarterback AJ Swan transferred to LSU, so obviously he's not going there to be he's not going to be the starter. It's going to be Garrett Nussmeier. But LSU now has got a good situation there, I think, for next year as a backup quarterback.
Well, and he's not a bad player, man. I mean, there was several games that I watched them. He hit the guy right in the numbers, and they drop it. And I tell you what, too, Phillip, moving forward with reference to Florida State, you better have two good quarterbacks on your roster, because I think it's a shame what happened to Florida State just because their star quarterback got hurt. But I mean, that shows right there. If you're next year, if you're sitting at number 13 or 14, in the rankings going into the last week of the season, and your quarterback gets hurt, you're not going to make the playoffs, probably. Mm-hmm. So you need to have two good quarterbacks.
Yeah, you do. You do. And so, hey, we've seen that in NFL this year too. All the quarterbacks in NFL getting hurt. You need two good ones. That's why the Indianapolis Colts are looking pretty good with Gardner Minshew. But yeah, having a backup quarterback, you're going to move forward. Florida State's going to be an example of why you need that. The Citrus Bowl, the last one before we get to the two playoff games, 12 o'clock on ABC on New Year's Day. Hey, you know what Steve Spurrier always said about the Citrus Bowl, right?
What's that?
You can't spell citrus without UT. But that's right. The Tennessee Volunteers, they will be playing Iowa 10-3. I guess you say they were runner-ups in the Big Ten. And Tennessee 8-4. Joe Milton, quarterback, will be out. He opted out. So did running backs Jalen Wright and Jabari Small. They will be starting a freshman quarterback for his first ever game. Now, I apologize. I am not going to pronounce the kid's last name. Nico is starting at quarterback. 6'6", 206-pound quarterback. He was the number 4 ranked pocket passer when he signed. So obviously, there's a lot of promise with him. So hey, your first ever start going up against Iowa, who we talked off air. Pretty good defense. Offense, not so much.
Yeah, their offense is horrible, but their defense is pretty good. And I'm gonna take the Hawkeyes here to pull the upset, just because the question marks Tennessee has an offense, and I know for a fact, is that his first start as a Tennessee ball? Going up against that defense, good luck, buddy, because that defense is for real.
I'm going to pick Tennessee. I having a hard time, but I said, you know what? I just thought about we've picked the same
Yeah.
one which one. I'll just go with Tennessee, but it's going to be tough without those running backs. Now, Dylan Sampson, the other running back, he will be playing in the game, so the one of the three-headed monster will be there for him. But Tennessee wasn't as good as at receiver as they were last year, and we'll see. Defense they were better though, so uh, probably not going to see a lot of points in this one. To be
What
honest
is your
with you.
prediction on the score, Phillip?
Tennessee wins this one 16-13.
All right, I'm gonna go 13-9.
So either way, we're really giving Iowa a lot of credit offensively going into this game. That is a high scoring affair if they can score 13 or 9 points in a game. So we'll see. Watch, but their defense scores the points. That's what.
Yeah, I was just about to say that pick six or something.
Yes, something crazy like that. All right, let's get these playoff games. This is what people want to hear. The Rose Bowl. We'll kick things off Alabama. Rose Bowl, 4 o'clock, ESPN. Alabama will be playing Michigan. Michigan is a 1.5 point favorite in this one. And the over under is 44.5. I tell you what, Matt, when you look at this, I just think this was a bad pick for Michigan. Just because I look at this now, one, they've never played a quarterback in the Big Ten like Jalen Milroe. Not there's no one like him they face. And I don't care. You can simulate it in practice all you want to. You're not ready for it until you see it live, in action. And another thing, I don't think Michigan's got receivers that can really for Michigan. I think to be successful, they're not going to be able to turn around and hand it to Blake Corum all day. They're going to have to throw the ball down the field. JJ McCarthy is going to have to make some throws. I'm just not sure they've got the receivers to stretch out the Alabama defense. So it feels like a bad matchup for Michigan.
I agree with you, and they also lost a potential first round pick in Zach Zinter, their All American right guard. He's out for the year. I mean, devastating injury. That was tough to watch, but that's a huge loss, man. He's their best lineman. And in the interior up against Alabama and the size that they have up front, I think it's going to be tough sledding running on Alabama the whole game. I think Michigan, they'll pop some, but I don't see them doing it consistently unless they take an approach kind of like Auburn did and attack the perimeter. I think that's where you got to attack Alabama running the ball. I mean, but Roman Wilson is their best wideout. I think they've only had like one TD pass in their last 4 games, though. I mean, so they're not really getting the ball down the field. And if you can't do that against Alabama, you're going to have some problems. And so I just I think they might do something with Blake Alex Wargy as a runner, maybe a little bit. Michigan might. But and look, Michigan's got a really good defense. I'll give them that. Their linebackers are probably the strength of their defense. Junior Colson's a great player. Michael Barrett's a really good player. Jalen Harrell's linebacker. He has 7.5 sacks. So, and Mike Sanderstill, he's not a very big defensive back, but he's tough and he causes turnovers. He's got 4 picks, 2 for TDs. So that's probably somebody Alabama's got to stay away from throwing to. But it's like you said with Milroe, man. I mean, it's kind of like Lamar Jackson up in the NFL. I mean, if you're like an NFC team and don't play him once or twice a year, and he comes in there and it's just like, whoa, man, this is a whole different animal. And I like the way Milroe's playing, man. Him and Isaiah Bond have really seemed like they formed a good connection in the passing game. And there's one guy, number 45, Robbie Oots, their tight end. Nobody ever talks about him, but that dude is a good blocker. And he means a lot to that offense. He made a couple of short yardage plays in that SEC championship game. His blocking was the difference between getting a first down. And I like players like that because they don't need the glory. They don't need the people writing about them, but they do their job. And he's an unsung hero on that offense. And of course, Caleb Downs, punt returner, averaging over 21 yards per return. He could pop one here in this game, I think.
Yeah, I think you talk about Michigan on perimeter. Maybe the best chance is using JJ McCarthy more in the run game, because you look at what Peyton Thorne did and some other quarterbacks giving Alabama trouble, like you said, on the outside. But because again, I'm going to go back to another point. Georgia only rushed for 78 yards. And how many times in the SEC championship game did Georgia have it like third and short, 4th and 1, and they couldn't get the yard? And you didn't see that with Georgia all year. So that Alabama front, Dallas Turner, and that group, it's gonna be tough. I like Alabama in this one. I think it. I actually don't see a whole lot of points being scored here. I think you're probably looking like at a 21-14, 21-17 kind of game. I just think Alabama's they're going to wear on Michigan, and it's going to be tough. And Jace McClellan should be back in this game too.
Yeah, I told you earlier in the year that I like Jam Miller, that running back. He's a good player, and they've hit him on the wheel route a couple of times and gotten big plays. So I'd look for that. And I tell you, man, Deontay Lawson at linebacker, he's been playing terrific, and he played a heck of a game against Georgia. So he's kind of a guy that's really coming on too. But I just think it's out in the Rose Bowl. I think some points are going to be scored. I like Alabama big here. I like Alabama 35-17, something like that.
Okay, it is going to look beautiful on TV at that stadium. Those two uniforms, Michigan and Alabama. I got some trivia before we jump into Texas and Washington for you, Matt. Who was the last Michigan quarterback to beat Alabama? They played a few times in some bowl games. Who's you going to say?
Tom Brady.
Yep.
Tom Brady.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've asked that to a few people since this matchup has been announced. You're the first one to get it. You're the first one to get it. The 2000 Orange Bowl when they beat. Yep. So
I remember watching that game. I was with a bunch of people, and I remember watching that game. I think, if I can recall correctly, Alabama missed a field goal at the end of the game, and they lost. Right?
Extra
Is that what
point.
happened?
An extra
point. Yeah, that's what it was.
The same way they beat Florida. The same way they beat Florida that year in the Swamp, which they played Florida twice. They blew them out in the SEC championship game, but when they went into the Swamp and won overtime, Florida missed the extra point and lost the game.
Yeah, yeah.
And that, you remember that was back when you didn't go in the Swamp and win. I mean,
no.
Was Spurrier there? No, you did not dare go in there.
I remember Terry Bowden did it.
Yeah, he did it.
That was when they were really good too.
Yeah. I think it was 94, and then so it was like 5 years until they actually got beat in the Swamp again. That was about the only way he could beat Bobby Bowden too, was when the Seminoles went into the Swamp, because I don't think he ever beat Bobby Bowden in Tallahassee. But anyways, the Sugar Bowl, Texas future SEC team versus Washington. This will be on at 7:45 on ESPN on Monday night. Texas, they're a 4-point favorite here. The over/under is 63.5. I know everybody, when you look at Texas, you want to talk about Quinn Ewers and what the offense can do. This Texas defense is really, really good. I think it's a very underrated part of this team, and I think they're going to give Penix trouble. Now, they've got some good receivers on the outside. Does Washington? We've talked about them a couple of times this year, but that Texas defense versus the Washington offense is going to be the matchup for me.
Yeah, and look, man, Texas's defensive line is for real, and I know it's always cliche, but it all starts in the trenches, man. And I just think I don't know if Wisconsin's offensive line is going to be able to hold those guys off Penix. And I do think if you can get Texas, though, it's in the secondary.
Yeah,
and with Washington's wideouts. I mean, those guys are for real. I mean, so I think this game, I had a hard time thinking who's going to win. I mean, I think Dylan Johnson's a terrific running back. I mean, they got Rome Odunze and Polk there at wideout. I mean, I think this game's going to come down to turnovers. I really do, because I think they're pretty evenly matched. I think it's going to come down to turnovers, but I give the edge to Texas just because of their defensive line.
And you know what? Texas, too, another thing, their run game is pretty solid. Now, obviously, they lost late in the year. Jonathan Brooks had over 1,000 yards, but C.J. Baxter, Jaden Blue, Keelan Robinson, all the running backs, they kind of gone with a running back by committee since he went down with injury. They've done really well, too, so that keeps a lot of pressure off of Quinn Ewers if they have that run game attached to what he's able to do down the field with the passing game. A.D. Mitchell, former Georgia player. I mean, they've got the speed and being inside in the dome helps them out. It helps both teams. I think this is probably going to be the more entertaining game of the two playoff games. I just feel like Alabama Michigan's going to be a physical, violent football game, just the way those two teams want to play. This one's going to be kind of more of your, if Texas, like you said, Texas secondary, if you can get to them, it's going to be an up and down game.
Yeah, and you mentioned Jaden Blue. That guy is fast as lightning, and it would not surprise me one bit if he has a big game here. I will say this: Washington's linebackers are really tough. Those guys fly around and hit. I don't know, just something's telling me, man, Texas is going to win here, and I think you're looking at the Big 12 having success in these bowl games, and so they might have been a little bit better league than we first thought. So I like Texas. I think they're going to win the game. I think it's going to be a high scoring game, like 34-31, something like that.
Yeah, I did too. Well,
34-30.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Texas too. I'll go 38-31 Texas. Go a little bit higher scoring than you. So obviously, when I'll get to it next week, got some people lined up for the show next week. But this will be our last time for football season talking, Matt. You've got Alabama, Texas playing for the national title. Who do you think is going to be the national champion?
Alabama.
All right. And if everybody in Tallahassee will be throwing fit, I think for once the Auburn fans won't be the most upset fan base that Alabama won a national championship. I've got one more prediction to ask of you, and I did not prep you for this. Who's going to win the Super Bowl?
Baltimore Ravens.
I like it. I was leaning 49ers, but after Monday night, the way that the team looks, let me ask you something. How would you like to have been that referee that tripped Lamar Jackson to force that intentional grounding? And the face he made, he had that face, Matt, that said, "I just embarrassed myself on national television." And I'll say this: they shouldn't. I don't know what you do in that situation if you're an official, but they need to have something wrote in. Okay, that was the official's fault. He got tripped for the intentional grounding. I don't know. There got to be something you can do about that.
That was about the only guy that could stop him. The ref. I mean, he's an amazing player, dude. And I was kind of questioning why Atlanta didn't make a run at him last year when he was a free agent. But he's going to make a lot of money this offseason. And I'll say this, too, about Lamar. I was a little hesitant when he first went to the NFL about him being able to succeed because of his passing. But he's doing a terrific job. And what's the coordinator that came from Georgia, their OC? What's his name?
Monken.
He's dialing it up just like he was at Georgia. And there's a difference between Todd Monken and Mike Bobo calling plays. And so there's a big difference there. But the Ravens, man, they always draft well. They hardly ever have busts as players. They're just a well-constructed team. And I had fantasy guys playing. I had McCaffrey and Ayuk. And so, I mean, I don't know. It was an impressive win, though. The Niners are for real, and they got whipped.
Yeah, they did. I think a lot of people were ready to jump on Brock Purdy because I never really bought into him being the MVP of the league just because all the talent that's around him on a 49er team.
Sure.
He's like a point guard. He distributes the ball to the superstars. That's what he does. Two of those interceptions weren't exactly his fault. They were just kind of like freak plays, tips, and stuff like that. But they're a good team. I believe the NFC is going to be the Eagles and the 49ers regardless. Those are the only two teams I really feel like in the NFC that can get into the Super Bowl. I do think the Rams are dangerous right now the way they're playing. Now on the other side, who knows? The Chiefs are down. That team is not right. Maybe it's the Taylor Swift effect on that team. I don't know. The AFC South's a mess. I mean, Jacksonville's lost 4 in a row. The North is, the Ravens and look, Joe Flacco. Man, maybe the Miami Dolphins make a run at it and get to the conference championship. And then the Buffalo Bills, if they get in the playoffs, look out.
I agree with you on that one. I think the Bills are dangerous. And like you said, with the Rams, they're a team that somebody might not be thinking a whole lot about, but Cooper Kupp's going good now. Nakua, the rookie, their lines blocking. Stafford out there, the second-year kid running back. They're playing really well, man. I mean, they're going to be dangerous. It's
Yeah,
all,
they
hey,
will.
it's like baseball, man. It's who gets hot at the right time. But Baltimore just looks like the most complete team to me. And they got the best kicker in the league. They got arguably the best defense. They got the most dynamic player, and they got weapons everywhere, man.
And they got the coach. John Harbaugh does not
Yes.
get a lot of credit. He is the sane Harbaugh brother. He is not as out. We don't hear about him like we do GM there at Michigan. John, I think John gets forgotten about sometimes. I really do believe that.
Yeah, and I do think Monken's made a huge impact on their offense, calling plays.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting. We got 2 weeks left of that, and then we'll be into the NFL playoffs. But Matt, it's been fun. Been fun all football season doing this with you again. Can't believe it's ending here. We'll be before we know it, we'll have football season again next year. But tell people what you're doing over at Field Level Media.
Yeah, I've been doing some basketball stuff. Of course, I do the Falcons on Arthur Smith recap of his press conference and their previews, and probably going to be doing some more basketball coming up because college basketball is about to get hot and heavy. So go check out the previews and recaps for any sport at fieldlevelmedia.com.
All right, everybody, go check out Field Level Media. And Matt, once again, I appreciate the time. Appreciate you coming on during football season, and look forward when we get to chat again sometime down the road.
All right, man. We'll talk to you soon, bud.